The conference room smelled like burnt coffee and lemon cleaner, like someone had tried to erase stress with citrus. HR sat at the end of the table with a notebook open, pen poised. My team lead, Barbara, sat beside her in a cream blazer that looked like it had never known a wrinkle. On the screen behind them was a slide with the word leadership transition in a soft, corporate font. My name wasn't on it. I kept staring anyway, like it might appear if I stayed hard enough. Barbara folded her hands. Nora, she said, voice sweet, you're talented. Everyone knows you work hard. My throat tightened. Thank you. She tilted her head the way people do when they're about to deliver bad news but want to look kind doing it. The leadership role requires a certain steadiness, and sometimes you're too emotional. For a second, I thought I misheard her. Our pen scratched once. No one corrected her. The room went quiet in a way that felt violent. I heard the air conditioner click on and off. I felt heat rise up my neck, and for a moment I was terrified my face would betray me. Prove her point. I swallowed. Too emotional. Barbara's smile didn't move. UK. That's not a bad thing. It just doesn't always read as leadership. On the screen, a new name appeared under team lead. Not mine. Someone else's. Someone who'd been on my team for barely a year. I looked at HR. Is this official? HR didn't meet my eyes. The decision has been made, Nora. And in that moment, I understood something I hadn't wanted to understand for months. This wasn't feedback. This was a label. A reason to keep me small. I sat there with my hands folded, nails digging into my palm, and I promised myself I wouldn't cry in that room. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. But when the meeting ended and chairs scraped back, Barbara leaned toward HR and said softly, thinking I couldn't hear, she's brilliant. Just not stable under pressure. My stomach dropped. Because if she'd already convinced HR of that, what else had she been saying with my name attached? I walked out of the conference room like my legs belonged to someone else. The hallway lights were too bright. People were laughing near the break area, someone's birthday maybe. The normal world continued, and it made me feel like I'd stepped into it barefoot after a storm. At my desk, I stared at my monitor without reading anything. My email pinged. A calendar reminder popped up. A coworker asked, quick question, and my mouth said, sure, while my brain went numb. Then Lynn, the receptionist who always knew everything before anyone else did, leaned over the divider and lowered her voice. I thought you had it, she whispered. I forced a small smile. So did I. Her eyes flicked down the aisle toward Barbara's office. The door was half open. I could hear Barbara laughing on a call, warm and confident, like she hadn't just cut my legs out from under me. Lynn hesitated. She's been talking. My stomach tightened again. Talking. Lynn looked uncomfortable, like she regretted opening her mouth. Just careful, okay? She's been telling people you take things personally. I nodded, slow. Thank you. When Lynn walked away, I sat back in my chair and stared at my hands. They were steady. They didn't shake. My breathing wasn't frantic. If anything, I felt too calm, like my emotions had gone somewhere else to hide. A message popped up on Slack from Barbara. Let's align later. I want to make sure you're okay. I stayed at it for a long time. The words looked kind, but I could hear the tone from the meeting. Too emotional. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a new document on my computer and typed a title at the top. Timeline. Then I wrote today's date. Then I wrote exactly what Barbara said, word for word, while it was still fresh. I told myself I was doing it for clarity, for my own sanity. But somewhere in my chest, something hardened. Before Barbara ever called me too emotional, she called me a lifesaver. That was the first time I realized how easily praise could turn into a leash. It started a year earlier, when I'd joined the client operations team at Hartwell Solutions. I wasn't glamorous. I wasn't loud. I was the person who fixed things before they exploded. My first month, the team lost a major account manager 2 days before a renewal deadline. The client was panicking, leadership was panicking, and Barbara, newly promoted and eager to prove herself, looked like she might crack. I stayed late. I pulled up every document I could find. I called the client after hours and listened while they vented. I made a list of their complaints. I tracked down answers. I didn't promise what I couldn't deliver. By morning, the crisis was contained. Barbara beamed like she'd done it herself. But later, in the hallway, she squeezed my arm and said, "I don't know what I'd do without you." It felt good, back then. For a while, she treated me like her secret weapon. She'd loop me into sensitive projects. She'd ask my opinion in meetings. She'd talk about your future here with a warm smile. Then, slowly, the tone shifted. Anytime I pushed back, gently, respectfully, she'd laugh and say, okay, don't get emotional. If I looked tired after a late night, she'd say, "We need thick skin in this department." If I cared about a client's frustration, she'd say, "Don't absorb their feelings. That's not your job." At first, I told myself she meant well. But then I noticed the pattern. Men who raised their voices were passionate. Women who raised concerns were sensitive. And I was learning, quietly, that Barbara didn't want me to lead. She wanted me to carry the weight while she wore the title. The week before the promotion meeting, she'd asked me to draft a proposal for a new process. When I delivered it, she said, "Perfect." 2 days later, I saw the same proposal in a presentation deck with her name on the cover. I didn't say anything. I told myself it didn't matter. Until the day she looked me in the eye and said I was too emotional to be a leader. And suddenly, all the small moments lined up like evidence. The morning after the promotion meeting, my calendar looked different. A recurring strategy call I'd been on for months was gone. Another meeting was optional. A project I'd led end to end was reassigned to the new team lead, Philip. Philip was nice in a shallow way. He smiled a lot. He asked how your weekend was. He also didn't understand the work yet, but he carried himself like he did. When I asked Barbara about the changes, she didn't even look up from her laptop. "We're just streamlining," she said. "You've been stretched thin, Nora. I'm looking out for you." I waited. So I'm being protected from leadership tasks. Barbara's eyes flicked up, bright and sharp. "See? That tone. That's what I mean." I felt my cheeks heat. "What tone?" "The defensiveness," she said, still smiling. "It reads emotional." I held my gaze steady. "I'm asking a question." "And I'm answering," she replied. "Philip needs room to step in. Let's support him." Support him. Translation, do the work, let him shine. That afternoon, Philip stopped by my desk holding a printed spreadsheet like it was a foreign language. "Hey," he said, voice friendly. "Barbara said you're the best person to help me understand this client workflow. Mind walking me through it?" Mind walking me through it. I looked at the spreadsheet. It was one I'd built. I could have said no. I could have told him to ask Barbara. Instead, I nodded. Sure. Because I could feel the trap waiting. If I refused, I'd be difficult. If I helped, I'd be supportive. So I helped, calmly, efficiently, while Philip took notes. Then he smiled and said, "Wow, you should be running this team." The words hit like a bruise. Later, after he left, I opened my timeline document again and added entries. Projects removed after promotion denial. Strategy call removed. Workflow reassigned to Philip. I stayed at the list until my eyes blurred. I wasn't spiraling. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't slamming doors. I was documenting. And that's when the first client email came in that made my pulse jump. It wasn't addressed to Barbara. It was addressed to me. The subject line read urgent. Clarification needed. It was from Karen Turner, the client's program director at our biggest account. Karen wasn't dramatic. If she wrote urgent, it meant something was on fire. I clicked it. "Nora, I'm seeing a revised delivery schedule that we did not approve. Can you confirm what's happening?" My stomach tightened because I hadn't touched their schedule in weeks. The last approved version was locked. I opened the account folder. Sure enough, a new file had been uploaded overnight. Final schedule, approved. It wasn't approved. The changes were subtle, almost sneaky. Deadlines moved, expectations softened, a few deliverables removed. The kind of edits that made things easier for us and worse for them. It looked like someone was trying to protect our internal metrics at the client's expense. And Karen had noticed. I felt my heartbeat climb, but my hand stayed steady. I pulled up the edit history. The file had been uploaded by Philip. I sat back in my chair, staring. This wasn't just annoying. This was dangerous. If Karen believed we were changing terms without consent, she could escalate, cancel, or torch our reputation. I replied carefully, Karen, thank you for flagging this. That schedule was not approved by you and should not have been marked final. I'm reviewing now and will send the correct version within the hour. Then I did what I always did. I fixed the problem. I pulled the correct schedule, highlighted the differences, and created a clean version. I wrote a brief explanation without blaming anyone by name. When I sent it, Karen replied within minutes. Thank you. I appreciate your clarity. Please keep me as the primary contact on anything related to schedule approvals. I stayed at that line. Keep me as the primary contact. I forwarded the email to Barbara and Philip with a neutral note. FYI, Karen flagged an unapproved schedule file. I corrected and reset the approved version. Please ensure future uploads are aligned with client approval. 5 minutes later, Barbara appeared at my desk. She leaned on the divider like we were friends. Hey, she said softly. Got your note. Good catch. I waited. She lowered her voice. But next time, don't make it a thing. Clients get jumpy. I blinked. She emailed me. Barbara's smile tightened. Exactly. And you're great with them, but you can't let your feelings take over. We need calm. I kept my voice even. I was calm. Barbara gave a tiny shrug. Just don't get emotional about it. Then she walked away. I watched her go, and something inside me clicked into place. She wasn't afraid of my emotions. She was afraid of my credibility. That evening, after most people left, I stayed at my desk with the office lights dimmed. I opened my timeline document and added another entry. Client flagged unapproved schedule uploaded by Philip. Barbara advised not to make it a thing. My throat felt tight. Not from tears, from pressure. Like I was holding back a scream I couldn't afford. I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. It was Eric, one of the senior analysts, holding his coat and keys. Eric was quiet, thoughtful, and never involved in drama. If Eric spoke, it usually mattered. You okay? He asked. I hesitated. No. He nodded like he expected that answer. Barbara can be strategic. I let out a small, humorless laugh. That's one word for it. Eric leaned against the desk beside mine. I've seen this before, he said. People who call you emotional are usually trying to control the narrative. I looked at him, surprised by the directness. He continued, carefully. You're not emotional. You're thorough. You notice patterns. That threatens people who survive on vagueness. I swallowed. She's already told HR I'm unstable under pressure. Eric's eyebrows lifted. Did she? I nodded. I heard her. Eric exhaled slowly. Then you need to protect yourself. I said, tapping the open document on my screen. I'm writing everything down. Eric's eyes flicked to the title. Timeline. He nodded once. Good, he said. And don't vent. Don't argue. Don't try to prove you're not emotional. Let your work speak. I stayed at my inbox. Karen's email was still open. Her request was clear. She trusted me. Eric shifted, like he was about to leave, then paused. One more thing, he said. What? He lowered his voice. Barbara's been telling leadership you're not ready because you don't handle pressure well. But she also keeps leaning on you to fix the pressure. My chest tightened. So she's using me to survive while telling people I can't lead. Eric's mouth flattened. Yes. He put a hand on the desk. Light, not patronizing. Just be careful. People like that don't stop when you stay quiet. They stop when someone above them sees the truth. He left. I sat in the dim office, staring at Karen's email, then at my own hands, still steady. For the first time, I didn't fantasize about yelling at Barbara. I didn't imagine revenge that involved sabotage or drama. I imagined something simpler. I imagined the truth being read out loud in a room Barbara couldn't control. And I imagined how she'd look when her smile finally failed. 2 weeks passed, and Philip started to wobble. Not in a dramatic way. In a slow, everyday way that made work feel heavier. He missed details. He forgot client preferences. He promised timelines that didn't exist. Then he'd swing by my desk, smiling like we were on the same team. "Hey Nora, quick question," he'd say. "What's Karen's latest priority again? Oh, do you remember what we agreed on for the Q1 rollout? Oh, can you look at this draft before I send it?" And because I still cared about the client, and because the client didn't deserve our internal mess, I helped. But I started tracking it. Not to trap Philip, to protect the truth. One afternoon, Barbara called a team huddle. She stood at the front with her laptop open, confident. "I want to recognize Philip," she said. "He stepped into leadership beautifully." Philip smiled, embarrassed in a pleased way. Barbara continued, "And I want to thank everyone for supporting him. Especially Nora. She's been a great support." Support. That was all I was now. Support. After the meeting, Philip came to my desk looking uneasy. "I hate that," he said quietly. I looked up. "Hate what?" "That she keeps crediting you as support," he said. "You're doing half my job." I didn't answer. Philip leaned closer. "Why didn't they give it to you?" I stared at him. "They said I'm too emotional." Philip blinked, genuinely shocked. "That's ridiculous." I waited for him to say more. Instead, he glanced down the aisle toward Barbara's office, then back at me, and lowered his voice. "Just watch your back," he said. "Barbara is under pressure from above. She's trying to look flawless." He walked away. That night, I got another email from Karen. This time it wasn't about a schedule. It was a single sentence. "Nora, can we schedule a brief call tomorrow morning? Just you and me." My pulse jumped. Clients didn't ask for just you and me unless something was wrong, or something was about to change. I opened my calendar and accepted the invite. Then I added one more line to my timeline. Karen requested private call. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something that wasn't hurt. I felt anticipation. Karen's voice was calm on the phone, but there was a tightness beneath it. "Nora," she said, "I need to ask you something directly." "Of course," I replied, sitting upright at my desk. "I'm seeing inconsistencies," she said. "In documents, in promised timelines, in what Philip tells me versus what your team delivers." My stomach tightened. "I understand." She paused. "I don't want spin. I don't want reassurance. I want truth." I breathed in slowly. Eric's advice echoed. "Don't vent. Don't argue. Let your work speak." So I did the only honest thing I could do without throwing anyone under a bus. "I can't speak to internal decisions," I said carefully, "but I can speak to outcomes. If you want, I can send you a clear written summary of what we have approved, what is in progress, and what has been changed without your consent. Then you can confirm what aligns with your expectations." Karen exhaled. "That's what I'm asking for." "Okay," I said. "I can get that to you by end of day." There was another pause. Then Karen said something that made my throat go dry. "Nora, why aren't you leading this account?" I gripped my pen too hard. "That's not my decision." Karen's voice stayed even. "I've worked with a lot of vendors. You are the only person on your team who communicates clearly and follows through. When you're involved, things are stable. When you're not, there's drift. My leadership is asking me why we keep paying for drift." My chest tightened. "I'm sorry." "Don't apologize," Karen said, sharper. "I'm not blaming you. I'm telling you what's happening." She paused again, and the next words landed like a door opening. "I'm submitting a formal review next week," Karen said. "A performance review. It will include names. I want to make sure I spell yours correctly." I went still. "Karen." "I'm not doing this as a favor," she said. "I'm doing it because my team's work depends on reliability, and right now, you're the reliability." I swallowed. "Thank you." "Send me the summary," she said. "And Nora." "Yes." "Whatever internal politics are happening over there," she said, voice low, "they don't change what I've seen." The call ended. I stayed at my screen, heart pounding. A formal review. With names. For a moment, I imagined Barbara's smile freezing mid-sentence. Then I reminded myself. This wasn't revenge. This was accountability. and accountability was the cleanest kind of justice. The summary took me 3 hours. Not because it was difficult, but because I refused to make mistakes. If Karen was going to write a review with names, I needed every claim to be solid. I pulled every approved timeline, every email confirmation, every meeting note. I highlighted where changes had been made without client approval, and I attached the version history. I didn't accuse anyone. I simply laid out facts. When I sent it, Karen responded with one word. Perfect. 10 minutes later, Barbara called me into her office. Her office was always tidy in a way that felt performative. A framed quote on the wall. A perfectly placed plant. A candle she never lit. She gestured to the chair. Close the door, she said. I sat, careful, composed. Barbara leaned back and crossed her legs. Karen reached out, she said lightly. I kept my face neutral. Yes, she asked for clarity. Barbara's eyes narrowed just a fraction. She also asked why you're not leading. I didn't answer. Barbara's smile returned. Nora, I want you to hear this from me. You're valued, but you have to be careful with clients. You can't make internal issues visible. It reads unstable. My jaw tightened. I didn't mention internal issues. I gave her approved documents. Barbara tapped her nails on her desk and highlighted version history. That's intense. It's accurate, I said. Barbara leaned forward. This is what I mean. You get fixated. I stared at her, fixated on accuracy. She sighed like I was exhausting her. You're taking this personally. It's not personal. My voice stayed even. Then why did you call me too emotional in front of HR? For the first time, her smile slipped. Just a little. That was feedback, she said quickly. And I stand by it. I nodded slowly. Okay. Barbara blinked, like she expected me to argue. Instead, I stood. Is there anything else you need from me? She recovered her smile. Just don't escalate things, Nora. You'll regret it. I looked at her. I'm not escalating. I'm doing my job. I left her office with my heart pounding, but my posture steady. Back at my desk, I added to my timeline. Barbara told me version history was intense and said I get fixated. Warned me I'd regret escalating. Then my email pinged again. This time it was a calendar invite from leadership, quarterly client performance review meeting. And my name was on the attendee list. That night, I didn't sleep much. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying Barbara's tone. The way she said unstable like she was describing a defect in a product. In the morning, I put on my plain navy dress, the one that made me look professional without trying too hard. I pulled my hair back neatly. I drank water, not coffee, because I didn't want jitters. At my desk, I opened the meeting agenda. Karen's review was item number 2. I told myself not to hope too hard, because hope made you vulnerable. But I couldn't stop my mind from imagining the moment Karen's words were read. I could almost see it. Executives nodding, surprised, reading my name in black and white. And for the first time in months, I wasn't just surviving. I was ready to be seen.